Hello, everybody. Welcome back. We are back in English class. I'm glad that you're here because you want to learn how to be better readers. You want to learn how to read books well and talk about them and sound smart and stuff. And I know you're smart. How do I know you're smart? Because you're here, right? Smart people are coming here to learn more about reading and things. So last time we talked about something fairly simple, fairly easy to pick up, which was narrative point of view. Really, all you got to do is open to the first page and you got a pretty good idea what the narrative point of view is. Today we're doing something a little tougher. It will require you to read the whole book, which of course you were going to do anyway. Why wouldn't you? We're talking today about theme. Now, in an earlier video, I said that, in my opinion, all art, and this is beyond just literature, this is movies and music and visual arts and dance and everything, but all art is saying life is like this. And you can substitute life if you want for something more granular, right? Parenthood is like this. Being a man is like this. Work is like this, and so on, right? But basically, yeah, the artist is trying to tell us something about what they think the world is like, and it is our joy that we get to try to figure that out. And if the artist has been successful in communicating their vision, then it's going to be easy enough for us to find it. So the theme is basically that. What is the writer trying to tell us about life in this book? What are they trying to get across? Now, some people, again, back in high school English class, were kind of annoyed by this because you're like, how am I supposed to know that? The author doesn't tell us that. And there is no sort of preface at the beginning of the book saying, here's what I think the world is like, unless the author chooses to do that, which some authors might, but nevertheless. And another thing that probably turned people off in English class is that they might get one of those teachers who has decided that they know what the book is about. And when you say, well, I think it's about this, they're like, no, it's not about that. It's about anything. And to be fair, a lot of the English class classics have gone through a lot of work. They've been around for a very long time. They're part of the English canon. They've been taught by countless English teachers, critiqued by countless critics and critique people who know what they're doing, like me, who can't say critics or critiques correctly. And they've come to some decisions about what these books mean, right? We all sort of agree that, like, Catcher in the Rye is about growing up, or that Pygmalion is about the artificiality of social classes, things like that. And so when you're in English class and you say, well, I think it's about something else, you're making a pretty bold statement if you are kind of contradicting what's already been established. But a good English teacher would be like, I haven't thought of that. Explain why you think so. And that would be what a good English teacher response would be. That's how I try to respond. But nevertheless, it is up to you, in a sense, because you are the reader. You are interpreting this text for yourself. You are deciding what it means, and that is part of your job, right? The author is not here. All you've got is you in the book. So we try to figure out what the book is talking about. What is the subject of the book? And the easy way to start this is to start with like one or two words, right? So I brought along some books to play with here, to kind of experiment and see if we can develop this. So we could say, for example, Watership Down, one of my favorites. I love this book very much since I was a kid. If you haven't read it, you should. If you have seen the original animated show, I am sorry. If you have children who haven't seen the original animated show and they really need some trauma in their lives, show them the original animated movie. It's fantastic. But we could say that Watership Down is about, let's say, community, home, and safety. Right? The rabbits are trying to find a new home for themselves. They're trying to find a place where they'll be safe. Great. That works. Another book we got is Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller. Now, I know this is a play, and not a lot of people read plays recreationally, but sometimes you could. And it's a very good play. I've taught it quite a few times. And we could say that Death of a Salesman is about fathers and sons, about Willie Loman and Biff Loman. And it is about, let's say, the American dream. Right? The idea that if you work hard, you follow the rules, you do what's expected, you will be successful. All right? So it's about those things. And the third one is Terry Pratchett's Small Gods, one of my favorite. I think this might have been the first Discworld book that I read. Really good. I love this book. And we could say that this book is about religion and faith. And Pratchett does make a distinction between those two. So great. We've got some sort of one or two word ideas about what the books are. However, the thing is, if you go to your book club, to your salon, if you will, and you're talking to your other intelligent book friends, and you say, yes, of course, well, Watership Down is about community. Okay, there's not much further you can go with that, really. I mean, no one's going to disagree with you necessarily. The same way that no one's really going to disagree with you if you say Death of a Salesman's about fathers and sons or that Small God's about religion. So what we need to do is develop that and say, okay, Watership Down, well, we'll go with that one because it was the first one off the pile. Watership Down is about community. Great. But a lot of people have written books about community. Many people have written books about community. Thousands of people. Richard Adams wrote a very specific book and has his own specific view of what community means. So, what is Richard Adams saying about community? And that right there is the question you need to ask yourself about the book that you have been reading. What is this author trying to tell me about this topic? Same thing with Death of a Salesman. Sure, it's about fathers and sons. Absolutely. Willy Loman, Biff Loman, it's a father and son story. So is Star Wars. And with very few exceptions, Death of a Salesman is entirely different from Star Wars. So what is Arthur Miller trying to say about fathers and sons that is specific to this play? What is Terry Pratchett trying to say about religion and faith that is specific to this book that other writers who've talked about religion and faith haven't already said? Right? So that's what you have to do. You get to the end of your book and you say, all right, I know kind of in a single word what this book is about. What is the author trying to say about that topic? And this is where you develop your understanding and interpretation of what the book is. And here's the thing. You need to be able to support this. You need to be able to prove what you're saying. So if I say that Terry Pratchett is talking about religion, and I think, to my mind, when I read the book, when Pratchett talks about religion, he is talking about how religion as an organization can somehow overshadow the faith that it has been created to serve, right? That religions can somehow become more important than the faith of the people. And then I can look at the book and I can give you examples to prove that, how the Church of Ulm has all of these rituals and all of these people and, all of these very important sort of levels of authority, and how the people are entrenched in ceremony and ritual, but they don't hear the voice of their god, right? Who is a character in the book, the great god Ulm. And when the great god Ulm comes to Earth, he finds out that he only has really one true believer. Everybody else believes in the religion. They believe in the trappings of it. They believe what their priests and their bishops tell them. They don't really believe in the god. And there's one really great line that Pratchett put in there, which I just remembered. I'm probably going to misquote, but it's something like, at a certain point, a whipped horse is just going to believe in the whip. And that's kind of how the people of Ulm are. They believe in the whip, the religion. They don't believe in the god. And Pratchett makes a really, really interesting distinction. That's why I said there's a distinction between religion and faith in this book. And for him, faith, when he writes about faith, he talks about faith as being an empowering thing, that faith is something that can get you through impossible times if you have faith in something that's worth having faith in. And the main character, Brother, has faith in the great god Ulm. He has faith that Ulm is a good and decent god, even though Ulm really doesn't seem to be a good and decent god. But nevertheless, faith will get you through incredibly difficult times. Religion, however, can be, and he doesn't come down terribly hard, even though it's really seems to be. Religion can be dangerous if it displaces that faith. So there you go. Now I've made a statement about the book, a little long. If I were writing an essay, I'd maybe shorten it somehow, but I've made a statement about the book, which now I can prove by looking up sections of it. I can come up with quotes. I can talk about certain scenes. I can talk about specific characters, and I can back up my claim about that. Now, here's the fun part. Other people can disagree with me, and they can have a valid disagreement. That's the best thing. In fact, you there watching this video, you may have read Small Gods. You may have loved Small Gods. You might disagree with my statement about what I think Small Gods is about. Great. That's what we're supposed to do, right? We're all supposed to see a work. If we all agreed on what the work meant, then that would be kind of boring. But if you took something different away from that book than I took away from that book, now we have two new perspectives on that book. We can both sort of talk about them and develop them, and we can understand how this book is more complex and more intricate and more interesting than either one of us thought it was. And that is brilliant, and that is wonderful. And I wish every English class was like that, was with all the students kind of just strongly supporting their interpretation of a work and really kind of listening to each other and sometimes maybe trying to tease out more information, maybe sometimes asking extra questions about why they think so or why, or maybe what their evidence is, but ultimately respecting the other point of view that somebody has. I think that's really good. So let's try another one. Okay, let's try this. Death of a Salesman. So I said that this is about fathers and sons. It's a father-son story. There have been countless father-son stories. So what is Miller doing to make this one interesting? Well, in this book, to my mind, when we talk about it being fathers and sons, it is about how the father-son relationship can be incredibly destructive if the two people involved are not sort of dealing fairly with each other, are not seeing each other as they truly are. And I take that because in the play, Willie Loman, the father, and Biff Loman, his son, we see in flashbacks that Willie thinks Biff is just the golden boy, thinks he's the best thing in the world. And really, Willie sees Biff as kind of his replacement in a sense, right? He's going to, like a lot of parents do, he's going to live his life through Biff. He's going to see Biff's successes as his successes, which is not healthy. And he just really keeps building up Biff, telling him how awesome he is and how great he is, and the girls love him, and the boys want to be him, and he's going to go off to a great school. And Biff thinks his father is a brilliant man. Biff idolizes his father, loves his father dearly, has built up this vision of his father as this incredibly popular, capable salesman, because, to be fair, that's what Willie tells him he is. And it's great until Biff, in encountering some school trouble, goes to visit his father up in Boston and discovers that his father is having an affair. And that utterly destroys Biff, because everything that Biff is built on what his father has told him, is built on his father's assurance and his father's praise. And if his father is a cheater and a liar and a no good man, what does that mean for Biff? And Biff's life goes completely off track at that point. And so when we talk about a father-son relationship, this is a very toxic one. And this is something that Miller is showing us, that fathers and sons, that relationship cannot be sustained and it cannot be healthy if you're not seeing each other for who you are, if you're not being honest with each other about who you are. It will be a destructive relationship that cannot last. There's another father-son relationship in the play, which is Charlie and Bernard. And theirs is a much more prosaic father-son relationship, right? We don't see a lot of them because they're not main characters, but by the time Bernard grows up, he's arguing cases in front of the Supreme Court. Charlie seems to have been a successful father. And Willie says, how did you do that? How did you raise a boy who's going to go argue in front of the Supreme Court? And Willie doesn't understand. But we can kind of infer that Charlie and Bernard had a good father-son relationship, even though we don't really get to see much of how it worked. So we see in this, Miller is kind of presenting us with what a father-son relationship should not look like. And if you are a father or if you are a son, I think Miller wants us to read the play or see the play and hopefully take that relationship as a warning about what not to be, right? Don't lie to your kids about your success. Don't pump them up full of their own ego to a point where it'll crush them if it gets thrown down. And kids, look at your dad and be sort of honest with who you want to be and be honest with who they are. And that's a far healthier relationship. So I know I've talked a lot because this is what happens is you start to make a claim about a book and then you start to talk about you can't just leave that claim hanging in the air somewhere. You have to be able to develop it and discuss it and argue it. And if you were to write an essay, for example, or if you were making a speech about the book, or even if you were talking in your fancy book club salon, you need to be able to back it up from points in the text. Our third one, I'll keep this a bit short because I think you see where we're going, right? Yeah, absolutely. So Watership, down, I said it's about community, it's about home, it's about safety. We'll go with safety, right? Because the whole book begins with the original Sandalford Warren. being overrun. It's going to be plowed under. The rabbits that live there are going to be gassed and killed. It's going to be plowed under to build a bunch of residential plots. But the rabbits, thanks to a vision by the rabbit fiver, they escape before the bulldozers come. And then most of the book, like the first half of the book, is them trying to find a place to live. The second half is them trying to defend their place to live. And so the idea that safety is something that has to be pursued, first of all, you can't just assume that safety you cannot assume that you will be safe. Safety should not be taken for granted. That actually might be a great theme for the book. Safety should not be taken for granted. Because they thought they were safe in their original warning. They were not, Warren, and they were not. They tried to find a new home, and it was an incredibly dangerous trek. In fact, at one point in their journey, they come across a wonderful-looking warren, which looks beautifully safe. All the rabbits there are healthy and well-fed and wonderful. But then we learn that the reason why all the rabbits there are safe and healthy and well-fed is because they're under the protection of a farmer who occasionally will set out a trap to catch one of their rabbits. And all the rabbits living in that warren have kind of come to accept that fact, that they live by the grace of this farmer, and really any one of them could die at any moment. So again, they think they're safe. They're not. And then the second half of the book, after they do finally find their new home, they have to defend it against the warren of Ephrathah, which is this sort of a fascist rabbit warren, if you can imagine that. That's also kind of overcrowded, and it's not a great place to be. And so they want to find... They see a competitor, a rival in the Watership Down warren, and they want to destroy them. And again, you have to fight for this. And so these rabbits, who were never really raised to be fighters, have to be able to fight for their home. So safety cannot be guaranteed. Safety has to be fought for. Safety has to be built. Safety has to be defended. Safety is not a static condition in which we exist. It is dynamic, and it is something that must be upkept. And it's not surprising, comes from a British writer who no doubt lived through World War II. So there you go. That's what you do. That's how you develop a theme when you're talking about a story, when you're talking about a literature. All this stuff, by the way, you could easily port over to movies, to plays, to TV shows, any kind of narrative. And even you can kind of tweak it a bit and apply it to other forms of art as well. But basically, that is it, right? You come up with a topic. The book is about this. And then what is the author trying to say about this? And then you develop that. And that belongs to you. That is your idea. And if there's anything that you take away from this video, other than everything else I said, of course, because it's all gold. But if there's anything you take away from this video, it is that you are free to understand works in the way that you understand them. I would say the only kind of limit on that is that you got to back it up, right? You can't just spout anything you want. You got to be able to, I have to be able to say, okay, show me, and you should be able to show me. But nevertheless, your ideas are yours. You're the reader. You're creating meaning, and that's what this is for. And I know some people, again, in English class, they were like, "Ugh, I hate doing this because I just want to read for fun. I don't want to think about it." That's fine. Read for fun. Don't think about it. There's some books where this isn't going to be as easy. There's some books which are more fluffy, if you will, that it's going to be harder to come up with a really hard-hitting theme. And you know what? That's okay. If you've got your nice little airport mystery that you bought for a long plane ride, no one's going to expect you to sit down and deliver a lecture about the theme of your little airport mystery novel. I mean, maybe there is one, but it's not required. Relax. Don't worry. You're not in English class anymore. But I find that it helps my reading if, when I get to the end of the book, I run through those questions. I say, what is this book about? What is the author trying to say about that topic? And what are the examples from the book? And that really helps me better understand the text. And then if I'm ever so lucky as to be able to have a conversation with somebody about it, now I got something to say. Now I can sound smart in these wonderful literary salons that I'll be invited to someday. But in the meantime, thank you very much for coming back to class. If you got any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you've got any thoughts about themes and how to develop themes from works, if you have any thoughts about these 3 books, put them all in the comments. Put them in there, and make sure, of course, you subscribe so that you get the next class and all the other stuff that I put out there. So I really appreciate it. This has been great fun, and I will see you